How's it going, everybody? And welcome to the Music Production Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Funk, and I make music as AfroDJMac. And today I want to talk about a little game or challenge we're going to do called Finish February 2018. And this is to piggyback off of January 2018. Can't believe it's already over, but January was a little challenge to try to make a jam every single day of the month. Didn't have to be good, didn't have to be clever, didn't have to be anything. It just had to be you sitting down and making some music for that day and posting it. And there's a ton of posts that went up on Instagram. Instagram was kind of the place to see this, and you can follow that hashtag. It's hashtag January 2018. I think there's over like 8,000 posts that people did, which is pretty awesome. Each one of those is a little jam that somebody made. And there were a lot of people that were doing some really nice stuff. I followed a whole bunch of new people based off of what I saw on this particular, month of jams. And it was great, really inspiring. A lot of people did things that made me think differently about the stuff I'm doing and made me try new things. And it was a great communal thing. You saw a lot of people interacting with each other, by sharing their thoughts, ideas, commenting, encouraging each other. Really awesome experience, and many of you were involved in it, and I'm super happy that that has come about. Now, what I don't want to do, though, is have all these little jams end up in my graveyard of unfinished ideas on my hard drive. Spoken about that before. I think we all have it, a folder of projects from your DAW or recordings or whatever it is, of half-baked ideas that just never kind of got finished for one reason or another. So Finish February is going to be our chance to get those done and make something out of it. I'm shooting for an EP of like maybe 4 tracks as like my minimum. In my optimistic brain, I'm hoping for maybe a couple EPs, maybe a full-length album. Don't really know yet. I'm thinking probably more EP style, just because I had a wide range of different tracks. So I think it might make more sense to put those out on separate things, but not so sure yet. So how are we going to do Finish February? There's going to be a couple steps. The first step, I think, should just be to take a little break, to take a little time off. If you manage to get a jam in every single day, that's incredible, and it took a lot of energy. And it's nice to just step back. Take a minute off, because what we're going to kind of do in Finish February is sort of change our way of thinking a little bit. January was all about just collecting ideas, coming up with things, just showing up and making stuff. It was I kind of see it as like an exercise in saying yes. So a lot of what enabled me to get a jam done every day was that I said yes to a lot of ideas early on in the process. So I think normally it's very common for me to get really critical early on in the creative process. And I know I shouldn't. I've spoken about that before, that being critical so early in the game really kills your creativity and kind of zaps you out of the zone or the flow or whatever you want to call it, because you're just questioning your ideas. And if you're questioning things long enough, eventually you'll find something you don't like. So rather than like decide too hard about whether a jam or an idea was going to be suitable for a January post, it was just kind of like the first thing that came along that kind of struck you, I went with the first thing that kind of happened. And it allowed me to kind of break through a lot of maybe insecurities is the word. Not sure, but definitely some of them are insecurities where you kind of question an idea because maybe you don't think it's complicated enough. It's too common of a chord progression or a familiar melody that isn't, bending the rules of music theory enough to be considered intelligent. It wasn't about that at all. So it was just grab an idea and, once you get something that kind of moves you a little bit, go with it and to be committed. So it was, as I said, kind of like an exercise in saying yes. Yes, I'm going to go with this idea. Yes, I'm going to add this other part. I'm going to make this work. I'm going to just power through it, because there really wasn't time to question things too much. If you've ever watched the Fact TV Against the Clocks, I'll put a link in the show notes. They're really awesome. a producer is challenged to make a track in 10 minutes. And what you'll see in those challenges is that they kind of just keep plowing forward. There's not a lot of time spent, sound designing or trying to find the right preset or sample. And some of them kind of have a setup to start with and they just go through it. And I think it's a great exercise or a great example in how, in order to get things done, you have to commit to things. So in the January process, I found myself committing to things very early on, saying yes and moving forward. And that was largely in part to the time constraint. I knew I had to get a jam done because I knew I was going to have to do another one tomorrow. And a lot of times, time was running out during the day. It was hard to fit in, and it was just a matter of getting going. And not to mention trying to create some sort of visual to post on Instagram was a definite bottleneck for me. But managed to do it every single day. So I'm super happy that I was able to do that. Wasn't sure if I'd make it, and I don't know if I would be able to do it every month, but it was pretty cool. But it was a matter of saying yes. So I think finish February might start turning into a little more of saying no once in a while. So we'll start picking and choosing from our ideas and deciding what's going to stay, what's going to go, what are we going to keep, what are we going to get rid of. And I think it'll eventually, turn back to saying yes a lot too, because we're going to probably have to develop a lot of these ideas in order to make them kind of like release worthy if we're making an EP or an album. So there will be probably parts that need to be added, I'm sure. I know most of my jams are not finished by any means. So it's going to be, though, saying some no to kind of change the mindset. So I think taking a couple days off and just kind of let that experience settle, maybe listen back to things a little, or maybe not even, maybe just get some space from them. I kind of listen to stuff a lot. I'd like to review what I did the night before in the car ride the next day. So I definitely revisited things quite a bit. So I'm going to kind of just take a day or two to not listen to it. And I'm recording this on February 3rd, so maybe I've already done that, and it might be getting near time to start moving because February is a short month too. Don't forget, 28 days. So it's going to be important that we move forward. So maybe in that respect, there will be a lot of saying yes too and just moving on. But anyway, after we take a couple days off, the next step and the step I'm going to start taking now is to kind of collect my ideas, to take some notes on them, um, and figure out what I'm going to use and what I'm not going to use. So, in order to do that, I've created a little spreadsheet on Google Slides, and I'm going to share that. You can get that in the show notes. And it's just a way to kind of categorize and take some notes on the different tracks so that we can kind of plan what we're going to do. So, there's a couple columns. Those are the vertical ones. And then there's a row for each song. That's the horizontal. So it goes horizontally across the columns or the different categories. First column is just jam names. So this is just going to be what you want to call the jam for now. And they're all numbered by date, 1 through 31. And you'll just put in your jam, whatever you're calling it. It might even just be called whatever instrument you were playing around with. I understand you might not have a name for it. Many of my jams don't have names. So, or the names will probably change too once I start kind of developing them. So it's just you put your jam in there, right? Now there's 31 numbers, and then I put 10 letters, A through J. And what I'm doing here is allowing you to I mean, you're allowed to do whatever you want, but what I'm doing here is I'm allowing myself to add in some other ideas that I've had throughout the year. Now, I know over the course of 2017, I had a lot of unfinished ideas for sure, and a lot that I wanted to come back to, and a lot of things that were pretty close to finished. And then even a lot of things that really resemble some of the things I wound up doing for January, and I know will fit together nicely. So I made 10 extra slots at the bottom. So maybe part of these next couple days before you start like organizing or as you're organizing, go through some of those ideas maybe you had throughout the year. Is there anything that might fit together well with something else? So I expect that whatever I come up with is going to have some pieces of music that may have started before this January. And what's wrong with that, right? I mean, I know for myself, even just kind of looking at the way my jams progressed over the course of the month, they sort of like evolved into like different instrumentation or styles. And I know that over the course of the year, I was experimenting with a lot of that stuff. So I'm going to go back through a lot of the various things I've recorded and see if I can't salvage a few things from the year as well and incorporate them in our finished February project. So that's the first column. It's labeled A. The second column, B, I just have called notes. And here I think it's just a good idea to put down some notes about the song. Maybe what instruments you used. Um, what does the track need, perhaps? What does it have? Maybe it's got a certain thing going on that's kind of a identifying mark for you. Maybe it's a melody or a type of sound. But just to put some notes in there, maybe you might want to even put down like what it still needs. Maybe it needs like a focal point or something. The beat needs some developing or it needs another section. Anything, just a little bit of notes. I'd say keep it brief, but just some little ideas when you listen back to your track. What do you want to do to it? In the third column, C, I've got BPM. So I think it's not a bad idea just to write down the BPM of the song to see how it compares with some of the other stuff you've done. There's also a column for the key. So what key was your song in? E minor, A flat, major, or whatever. I know I kind of did a lot of work in E minor. So I think I did a lot of E minor and G major, kind of with the idea in mind that I might want to put some of these jams together later on. So I did that a lot of times, not every time though. And I think also, especially maybe with the BPM, I know for the key, like I said, I kind of purposely stuck in certain keys, but it might be kind of interesting too when you look back on your 31 jams or whatever you have. It might be interesting to see if you fall into similar patterns. Are you always working at 120? Because that's the default tempo in a lot of DAWs. Are you switching it around? Are you experimenting with other BPMs? So it might be a good way to just sort of see what kind of patterns you have. And next time you go to make a track, it might be a fun thing to try to break those patterns. So you'll kind of identify what's going on there. For the next column labeled E, I wrote down mood, theme, and genre. So for this, I think it's just a good idea to kind of write down, what's the overall feel, the emotion of the song? Happy, sad, bittersweet? Um, is it very tense? Is it a kind of release? Is it chilled? Like, what is the feeling of the track? Maybe there's a certain theme going on. Maybe you had something in mind when you were creating the track. Maybe there, if it had words, for instance, maybe there's something you're kind of talking about. And the last part of that is genre. So if it's a certain kind of genre, you might write that down too. And again, those three columns I've kind of put in BPM, key, and mood, theme, genre. I've put those in so you can kind of see similarities. I'm betting in my own work that a couple of these jams can be combined to create a full track. So it might be like day 11, day 13, and day 22 are very similar, maybe in BPM and key and mood. So I might throw those together. And that's what the next column is about. Column F is called group. And the group column is sort of a way to like label each jam. So jam 1, I'll label A. Jam 2 might be something totally different. I'll label it B. Jam 3 might be kind of similar to Jam 2, so I'll also label that B. Then maybe Jam 4 is a little bit like A and a little bit like B, and I'll write A, B. So I'll just kind of group these, and it's okay to give it more than one label, but it might be a nice way to see which tracks have similarities, commonalities, and that you think might work well together on some level. This might be they might form a song that works together by combining a few jams, or it might be just this would be a cool couple songs to put on an album. So the group idea is to just give it a label, just to kind of identify if it has any similarities with other things in your tracks. Column G, the second to last column, I called percent complete. And that's just an estimation. How far along in the process do you think this track is? Is it 80% done? Is it 20% done? Just give that a number to sort of give yourself an idea of how much work you think you might have to do to it. And the final column, column H, is rating, 1 to 4 stars. So I think it's a good idea to just kind of give your tracks a a rating. How much do you like them? And I've kind of figured like 4 stars means I'm definitely going to use this on my finished February projects. It's going to make it on the EP or the album. Definitely, no doubt. A 4 star track. 3 stars might be probably. I'll probably put this on there. I think it's good. I'm pretty sure it's going to work. Maybe it needs a little tweaking or a little attention. But 3 is like kind of, I'd like to use this. 2, I think we're getting more into like maybe, if you can find a spot or if there's a day when you work on it, something cool happens. So 2 is a maybe. And 1, I think, is kind of, no, I'm not going to use this. Definitely have a few of those jams. I started the month sick, so I didn't really have the greatest jams in the very first few days. And there were a few along the way that were just kind of, you know, not really that moving for me, so they might not go anywhere. But I can then, once I fill this all out, I'll be able to look and see, okay, these are my 4 star tracks. And I'll probably organize them that way going forward. I'll pick all my 4 star tracks, put them in like, prioritize them, and then 3, and then maybe the 2s. And who knows? Maybe the ones will get used to. I don't want you to think this spreadsheet is like the final say or anything, but I think it's going to be a helpful tool. I kind of preach planning a lot when I teach my music production classes, and also when I do my writing classes in English. The organization part is really important. Outlining is important. Taking some notes is important. And I think even though it might feel like an extra step, it's going to make a lot of the next steps down the road a lot easier to make. So I think it's a really nice idea to take some time. Might take a day or two. I don't know. Take a little bit of time. Try not to go too long on this, but organize your tracks. Review each one, each jam for each day, and categorize it as you're listening to it. And just make some decisions about what you think you're going to use and what you think you might leave out. And then also pay attention to which tracks are going to kind of fit together nicely. As I said, it might be on an EP together, an album together. It might be in the same song. You don't know yet. But I think having that picture is then going to make things a lot easier when we start moving forward and start working on the tracks. And you might have a jam from day 15 that might need another section. You can go to your spreadsheet and find something that you've either grouped together or maybe has a similar mood or is in the same BPM or key. And you can use that and start experimenting with that so you have an idea right away. And you can hopefully find a way to put those together and make something cool. So, I do plan on kind of recapping January 2018. I want to talk a lot about some of the processes I went through and some of the songs I made and how I came up with them and share some of those insights and lessons that I learned. It was really a pretty cool experience, and I do have a lot to say about it. But I also want to get this out ASAP because, like I said, it's February 3rd as I'm recording this right now. And February is a short month. So if we're going to make something, we do need to get to work. I think it is a good idea to take a rest. So you may have already done that. I have seen some people are still going strong with their jams, and that's cool too. But it does take a little bit of time to adjust to a new mindset, and that's what we're doing in February. And our effort here is to just not let these jams go to waste and just let them die and fade out into the ether, but to put something together that we can be proud of. And if this works well, you may have just proven to yourself that you can put out an EP or an album's worth of music in just 2 months, which I think is going to be pretty empowering the next time you start moving forward with some music. And that's what I'm hoping. I would say that as far as the attitude goes for this stuff, of course, I know it's going to be natural to want to do the best thing you can and put out the best product possible. But let's look at the deadline of, say, March 1st as like you have to have something. Imagine it was your job I mean, it might be for some people your job where you have to have some product done by then. And let's not get too wrapped up in maybe the quality of it. I mean, obviously, I think it's going to be pretty clear that you're going to try to do your best anyway. But the point is to finish. And if nothing else, this will become an exercise in taking yourself through the process of making a track, making an EP, making an album. It'll take you through the steps. And even if you don't like what you made, you've now practiced those steps along the way and you have some experience, and that's going to help you the next time you have something you do like. So, if nothing else, it's an exercise in just taking yourself through the entire process. I think we all probably have higher ambitions than that. And I think we all want to make the next, you know, super important album. But if you're thinking in those terms, I think that's going to be a lot of pressure and it's going to probably frustrate you. It would drive me crazy. I would be questioning everything, every step along the way, and probably just get really frustrated and self conscious and give up. But I'm going in there with this mindset of I want to just finish stuff. And it's going to be what it's going to be once March 1st comes along. So I'll do my best as I'm going along. I'll try to keep busy every day. That's going to be part of this, is to try to do something every single day, except these first few, and to try to put something together. If it's only a couple tracks, if it's only one track, who cares? That's a track you didn't have and you probably would not have had if you didn't go through this process. So there's really nothing to lose and there's only things to gain. And it could be a gold record, platinum record, but I think your ambitions will be satisfied a little better if you just think of it as finishing the project. And that's the attitude I'm going to be taking. Okay, so I'm going to put this in the show notes, this Google Slides document. I mean, you could always make your own. If you have suggestions on other categories that should be in there, there's probably a lot of things we could put in. I didn't want it to get too carried away where it's going to be a real hassle to actually do this, but there might be some other things that are kind of obvious that I'm missing that are useful when you're categorizing songs. Maybe instrumentation, but that I think you can put under the notes column. Um, and maybe even the notes column is good for a lot of the miscellaneous stuff anyway. But I'd be interested to hear if you've ever done anything like this or if you've got another idea. Um, I've done this sort of thing in the past with recording albums and songs where it's a little bit different. It's more like I'm gonna, I might make like a chart, and especially in bands, it'd be like, okay, we have a column for guitars, for bass, for vocals, and we'll cross it off as we finish for each track. But this is a little bit different because for me anyway, my jams are all over the place. I've got some experimental noise. I've got like rock and roll, and I've got an acoustic guitar song, and then it's just synth jams, and it's all over. So I don't think that way of instrumentation to finish my album is going to work, but I think this is going to help. And I think what I'll do after I fill out my own Google slide with this chart and with all my kind of notes on each track, I'll probably print it out and hang it up where I can see it all the time and just look at it, and maybe just like right next to where I do a lot of my work. It's just there, and I can look at it and think about it. I hope this helps you guys, and I'm kind of excited because it seems like a bunch of people are interested in doing Finish February. It'd be pretty cool if we can get a little group of people doing it. I think we can hashtag it Finish February 2018. Keep it nice and simple. We'll call it 2018 at the end because let's assume we might do this next year. And for 2019, we don't want to get confused. I hope you join me. If not, I'll be going solo anyway. So it'd be nice to have some support and encouragement. And I'd like to find inspiration from what other people are doing too. I know there's a few people that are already on board, and we're going to be moving along. So if you would like to, please join us. And if you didn't participate in January, who cares? I'm sure you've got a graveyard of unfinished ideas too. I'm sure there's a lot of loops, 8-bar loops that are cool, but you don't know where to go with them. Put them in the spreadsheet. And who cares if they happen in January or not? I don't think there should be any rule to that. You can join the party late and still be welcomed. This is Finish February 2018. Thanks a lot for listening. I think it's time we should all get to work now, or get to work resting one more day. And then we'll do our organization. I'll be back here, I expect, pretty soon to talk about some of the next steps I'm going to take. And I'll share whatever resources I have. Again, if you want to get this Google slide for yourself, just head over to the show notes for this post. I keep all the episodes at afrodjmac.com/podcast, and you'll see this one for Finish February 2018. Thanks a lot for listening. Thanks a lot for the support on January. Thanks for participating. Thanks for putting out really inspiring music. And let's keep on going and let's finish something for the month of February. Take care, everybody.